So I was in a department store the other day and I walked past the wall art section. It's the kind you'd see in any generic store. It's difficult to talk about this on a platform like YouTube where people making art that looks like this does pretty well, but hopefully the ArtLoud audience here are discerning enough to see the angle I'm going to try and come at it on. Some of these pictures look like original paintings. Paint had been applied to these prints to mimic authenticity. So now I'd look at the next print and realise the paint marks were slightly different, meaning they had been done by hand. On the surface, it's quite clever. I'm not anti-print. I have movie posters in my house and prints of artworks that I couldn't afford. However, seeing these, I just had to explore why it made me feel so very sad. Maybe you'll agree with me and maybe you won't. And either way, I'd love to know what you think. And to kind of frame this, I want to go back to when original paintings were in their heyday in the home. In the Victorian era, houses were built with picture rails as standard. Original artworks hung flexibly without damaging plaster. Walls were richly decorated. Most of those pictures were originals. So the art on those walls was often made by amateurs or hobbyists. People often knew the artist, or they knew the place, or they had painted it themselves. Each image was a small window into a direct and unique lived experience, a history of that household. Then, tastes changed. Industrialization allowed for mechanical reproduction. You could buy a fine reproduction of a Turner or a Constable. And at the same time as this, after the Second World War, minimalism slowly became more fashionable. Ornaments were seen as clutter, while the art world started to professionalize. Salons, galleries, dealers, and artworks became financial assets. Domestic creations migrated into galleries and collections. Art as a personal financial asset was born. And then came television. The post-war living room became arranged around a screen. And later computers and smartphones would dominate visual attention. Static art in the home became secondary. It became a decorative idea, not a focal point. Art in the home slowly became design. In the Victorian era, artworks were self-contained. Now, people buy pictures because they match the curtains. In expensive homes, you'll often see large abstract works where the curve in the line of a large minimalist work might mirror the curve of the staircase. I have art in my home that I think I would class as more like design because it kind of fits the space. It's interesting here how we look at trying to define the difference between art and design. David Hockney once said, "Art has to move you, design does not, unless it's a good design for a bus." And I'd like to take that a little bit further and say that good design requires the consistency, a lack of tension, if you will. Art often thrives in tension. Not necessarily in composition, but sometimes in subject. To take it to an extreme, think of Picasso's Guernica, filled with violence and distortion, a clash that unsettles you. That's tension. Or Francis Bacon's portraits. But let's take design now to its extreme. The interior of an Apple store, perfectly designed, seamless, frictionless. It's excellent design, but it's not art. There's a great industrial designer called Adrian Fruitlier who once said, when trying to describe how typefaces in newspapers should not be noticed, just the words that they are saying, that if you remember the shape of your spoon at lunch, it was the wrong shape. I love that quote. A perfect spoon perfectly fits the space in your mouth and you don't notice it. And that's what a lot of people say about art now. In their home, they put a piece of art up and they say it's the perfect fit. They don't say it moved them. They don't say it reminds them of. They don't say it was made by. They don't say it makes me feel. They say it looks good above the sofa. The personal stories unique to the homes of old are gone. The pictures in Homebase are design. They feature in 500,000 homes. Once the personal stories we hung over dining tables and sofas carried memory and meaning, and now they're replaced by this generic decor. Art's role in the home has been reduced to filling empty walls, or increasingly seen as just pointless and not placed in the home at all. But original art was never trying to be good design. What it did was carry a thread between the maker and the viewer. we forget that art is a bridge between human hearts, if you will. However humble, however jarring they may be with the pattern on the cushions, I'd rather see someone's blurry amateur watercolour of a favourite place in their hallway than I would the world's most polished painter or professional photographer shooting that same scene. Because that amateur who I am talking to, whose home I am stood in, holds a memory. People know this deep down, but they are embarrassed, worried what others will think if they were to put that up. They think that their home must seem nice and pleasant to the eye and anyone else's eye, not make them feel like they're at home. You feel at home with people who are not perfect, but you want to sit in a perfect room. I feel like homes should be full of things that are personal, not just full of functional items. And this is why the half-painted prints in that store in Homebase are the most disturbing of all. The human heart has re-entered in the worst possible way, not through any kind of mutual connection or creativity, but through industrial, near-slavery shackles, so that someone can sit beneath one and feel connected more to the artist because it's more like a painting. But people don't think that way. They just think it looks pretty, and now it looks more like an actual painting. But after doing this little exploration, I'm actually tempted to buy one, because I can't not see the human. And maybe it will act as a daily reminder of the conditions that other more functional things in my house are made under. Well, then again, maybe I'm just supporting an industry that I don't want to. I'm interested to know what you think. And if you want to join me in the discussion, you can reply on my Patreon and I'll get back to you there. And for the rest of you, I'll hopefully see you in the comments.